friends, it's Kelly and welcome back to Mama Needs a Goal. Thank you so much for joining me today. So we're doing something a little bit different today. If you don't already know, I am from Maryland and we love air steamed crabs. And I had decided I'm going to make some crab soup. And when I make crab soup, I like to actually use the crabs and not just buy the already picked crab meat, because I like to put some of the legs in there and I like to put some of the seasoning in there. And I also like to put half of the crab in there as well. So I thought it would be fun to bring you along so you can kind of see, one, how I pick crabs. I take my crab eating very seriously. I am not a talker when I eat. I am like a little machine. Boom, 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 boom. So I thought it would be fun to bring you along, show you how I pick my crabs. And what I'm going to do is pick all this. This actually, I have 4 trays of crabs. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have about 3 dozen of crabs that I'm going to pick, and it will take me a little while today to pick those crabs. So tomorrow I'm actually going to make the crab soup, and I will show you how I make my crab soup as well. And I'm also thinking that I may try, I've never made cream of crab soup, and I'm hearing this half and half crab soup is really, really good. So I thought I might make a huge pot of crab soup and then take a little bit to the side and then create a half and half crab soup with that as well. So that will be a first for me, and why not bring you along for that, because you all know me in the kitchen. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So let me bring the camera a little bit closer and we'll get started, and I'll show you how I pick a crab. Friends, I'm hoping you can see this. So I have my little bucket here that I put my crab meat in, and then I have this little container here where I'm going to put the legs and half of the crab in. What I'm going to do is pick some crab meat to put in the soup, and then I'm going to take a few crabs and put half of a shell in there, and I'll show you what I mean by I say half of a shell in the crab soup too. So but first let's just get started. Let me show you how I actually eat crabs when I pick it. So here is the little crab. These are blue crabs. When they're steamed, they are turn orange. Okay, so what I do is, and I should mention, I prefer male crabs over female crabs. You can tell by the apron. The female crab's apron is much different than this. This right here is called the apron. So the first thing I like to do, and this is different for a lot of people. Some people prefer to keep the legs on and take them off at the end. I like doing it first. So I just bend it back and pull the legs off. These do have a little bit of meat in them. Now when you pull this out, you can see sometimes some of the meat comes out. And there's actually a little bit of meat in here as well. This is claw meat. Claw meat is a little bit saltier, but I love claw meat. I think it adds a great flavor. I just really like the way it tastes. So I do use the claw meat as well. So let's get started and get the legs off. Can you see that little bit of meat that just popped out? That meat is inside the shell. This meat here is more of is the claw meat, and I do use that. Probably should move this over here so I don't have to keep reaching my arm. Now this is the larger claw. This is filled with meat inside. Well, most of them are. And what you do is you can just break it right down the middle there, twist, and pull out, and you see all that claw meat right there? It is delicious. And then you have the little claw like that, and you just pull it out, and there you go. And in the middle there's like a little, I don't know what it's called, a ligament or something that the claw meat's attached to. I just pull it off, throw it in my little bucket, or actually I would eat it normally if I'm eating it. And then, let's see, I don't really know what this is called, to be honest with you. If you can see that there, the meat is attached to that, and it's a little gristly. I don't know what it's called. And then look inside, because a lot of times there will be claw meat inside there as well. But I did pull it all out, and I don't know if you can see, there is nothing in there. So let me go ahead and take care of the other side with the legs. Look at that. Now I should mention these are seasoned. Old Bay is a big thing for us here, and it is very spicy. And when I pick crabs for soup, you can see your hands get very messy, and I like when this falls off my hands and goes in with my crab meat because it just adds to the flavor of the crab soup. And I'm telling you, this stuff is to die for. Look at all that. Look at that. That big chunk. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and put your little fingernail under there. We're going to pull back that little apron. This feels kind of light actually. And then you pull that off. And then what I do is put the crab facing me, put it down on the table, and the red part of the shell is facing me. I grab the little points here, and I take my thumbs, and I put my thumbs in the holes right here, where I just pulled the back legs off. And you push this part forward, and I push the crab shell towards me. You see my fingers here? And I just do that, just like that. Now this stuff here is the lungs on the side. You do not want to eat the lungs. We call that the devil here. I forget what else some of the other names are called, but we call it the devil. So I peel that off, and then I scoop out all this stuff in the middle, like that. Can you see that? And what I do is just rip the edges off where the eyes and all are. And then I scoop all that out. Make sure you get that cleared off. Just like that. And a lot of times there'll be some yellow mustard in there, and that is really delicious too. Okay, can you see the inside of that? Make sure you guys can see it. And then what I like to do is put my thumbs here, hands on the back, and just fold it in, and it breaks it right in half like that. And as you can see, a lot of the meat comes right off. So I just pull that off, throw it in. Now, these I like to put, this is when I say half the crab shell. I will put this in the soup, and it gets the flavor that's all in here, goes right through the soup, and it's really good. Now, if I'm eating crabs, what I normally would do is I just kind of squeeze this a little bit, and you hear it breaking, and then I just break it right down the middle. And then you can see like that big chunk of meat. And there's a couple different ways people eat crabs. This is the way I've always done it, and it works well for me. And I can just take out the crab meat right in here, like that. This one doesn't have a whole lot of meat in it, but I think you can get the idea. And I just pull out the meat. You do have to be careful because the shell is very thin, and there's a lot of little shells here. If you can hear the cracking. I just pull the meat out. Now, one of the things I did was we had crabs, and these were left over, and it does take a while to peel the crabs. So I put them in a very heavy duty trash bag and put them in my freezer, and I can freeze them for a couple months and pull them out and put them on trays. And that's what I did with these. So if you order crabs and you have a lot, and you can see all that meat. So if you order crabs and you have a lot left over, you can absolutely freeze them. I do it all the time. I'm trying to show this to you. Normally I'm like flying through this. It's so much faster. Let's see, can you see all that crab meat? And I know some of you are watching me thinking, oh my goodness, that's a lot of work for that little bit of crab. And I get that, but I think when you grow up with eating crabs, you kind of become good at picking them. So you just, it's like second nature. You do it. And it's a social thing too, just sitting and eating crabs as well. This crab was not overly full, so I didn't get as much meat out of it as I normally do. So here is my crab meat. And that's how I pick a crab. And then you'll also get a lot of loose little crab legs that are in the bottom of the bushel. And I like to just break it like that. And then I throw this in my soup as well. So I have like a little bucket here and I put them in there, and I'll put crab legs in my soup, the bigger claws, and then I'll do like half of the thing. And this does make a huge mess, as you can see. And what I normally do, I eat crabs outside. I usually don't do it in the house. I usually have a big trash can, and I'll have like a paper plate, and I always line the table with some paper or trash bag, and I'll put my shells and pick it on a paper plate, and that way I can pick the paper plate up and just dump it in the trash can. I just realized that I forgot to do that, so I will get myself a paper plate. So let me go ahead and get all these crabs picked. Now friends, what I'm doing now is these crabs are a little bit smaller and they have quite a bit of meat in them. So these are the crabs that I'm going to actually put in my soup. And what happens is as the soup cooks, this will soften up, a little bit of the crab meat will come out, and you get all that extra flavor in the soup as well. So these are pretty packed and they're a little bit smaller so they fit well in the soup. So I'm going to go ahead and just clean it really, really good. Make sure I get all the stuff off of it. And then I'm just leaving it whole like this. And I'm going to put it in my little bucket with some claws. And that is actually going to go into my soup. I have a couple claws here. I'm going to, oh, that one came out. The ones that don't come out, like I'm going to leave that in there. As I know there's some meat in there. You can kind of feel it by the weight. And what I do is also, I'll take my hand and just kind of gently go through the meat, mix it up, and just get a feel to make sure I didn't accidentally put any shells in there. Like here, I just found a little piece of shell. You can feel it when you're just picking it up and just kind of do a little quick rub. You can feel if you do have shells in there. And that way, it just eliminates some of the shells if you accidentally put any in. And I just do that periodically as I'm peeling. Alright, my friends, you can kind of tell this is pretty messy, so you always want to make sure that you wear an older shirt when you're bagging. A lot of times it splatters everywhere, especially when you're eating with friends, because they will include you in their mess. It does splatter across the table a lot of times. And normally I use a wooden mallet to bang on this. My mallets are up in the very top shelf of my cupboards, and I did not feel like dragging the step stool out, so I'm just using a butter knife. And a lot of times you can dig the claw meat out of the claw with your butter knife as well. I'm gonna go ahead, finish up these couple crabs. I have 3 more trays in the fridge that I'm gonna sit here and pick. So yeah, I'll miss 11 o'clock. I'll probably be here till 12:30 or so picking. And then I need to make a run to the grocery store and all. And tomorrow I am going to put the pot of crab soup on, and I will come back and share that with you. So again, if you have any questions about how I pick my crabs, what to eat, what not to eat, if you have an easier way, those of you, like I said, there was a video I saw that once you got inside, and I cannot remember for the life of me how they did it. I don't know. It looked a lot easier than what I was doing, but like I said, I've been eating crabs since I was a toddler. My grandmother and I were always the last 2 standing when it came to eating crabs. So anyway, I will pick back up with you tomorrow. All right, my friends, I hope you enjoyed me picking all those crabs. I know some of you are thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, that's crazy, there is no way. But when you've done it your whole life and have done it so much, it's just second nature. But anyway, let's get started. I want to go ahead go over quickly the ingredients that I use for my crab soup. So basically I start with 4 cups of beef broth. I normally use the container of broth. I thought I had some in the pantry and it was all chicken broth, so I'm gonna go ahead and use 4 beef bouillon cubes. The other thing I use is diced tomato. I am making a large batch, so I'll be using 3 cans of that. And of course, this is Old Bay. This is what makes that soup delicious. I'll be using a little bit of that, and I'll explain why I'm not using as much as you probably will if you make this soup. So as you all saw, I picked those crabs, and when I pick those crabs, they're steamed and seasoned. So when I'm picking them, the seasoning gets on my hands and goes into the container. So I have here about 3 pounds of crab meat. It's claw meat and regular meat, and if you can see, I hope you can see, there is quite a bit of seasoning in there that comes off the crabs that gets on your hands and goes in there. That is one reason why I do not use as much Old Bay seasoning in my crab soup. And then I have myself a container of some crab claws and the actual crabs where I broke them in half. And again, this is additional seasoning that's all over the crabs here. I wish you guys could smell this. It's so good. So that will also go right in the pot just like that. So that's adding a little bit more of that Old Bay seasoning. And then lastly, so this is something you probably won't find unless you're in Maryland, and honestly I have not seen this at all the grocery stores. I found this at Weiss. This has the Chesapeake Bay seasoning in there, so this is another reason why I don't use as much Old Bay, because this comes with the packet. This is a bag of frozen vegetables. There's corn, potatoes, peas, string beans, and lima beans in here, and some tomato. So a bag of mixed vegetables, and I will actually be using 2 bags of those in my soup. And then I will add water, and that I add last after I get everything in the pot. Then I'll add water and then cover it, everything up. So I'm not sure how much water I'll be using until I get everything in the pot. So let's get over to the stove and get the soup on, because it's going to need to cook for about 2 hours. All right, my friends, so I have my 4 beef bouillons in there, and I'm going to go ahead and pour 4 cups of boiling water in my measuring cup. There we go. So we have, so I'm gonna let that sit. All right, so we're gonna stir this a little bit, try to break that up. And while this is dissolving, I like to use a fork. I find it easier to break it up. So I'm gonna put that to the side. And then we're gonna go ahead, I already started, I've got 1 can of diced tomatoes opened. I'm gonna go ahead and get another can open. We're gonna do 3 of these. You could do 4 if you like tomato. I am not a big tomato fan. And this is kind of the base of the soup, this and the beef broth, but I always cut back a little bit with the tomato because my veggies do have a little bit of tomato in there. So instead of doing 3 of these cans, which I believe is like 14.5 ounces, I just do 3. Okay, now let's head over to the stove and get this soup on. All right, my friends, I have a pretty large pot here. So I'm gonna start with pouring my 4 cups of beef broth into my pot. I'm gonna add a little bit of water. Okay, so I'm putting in 4 cups of water. And then, oops, I'm trying to find my spoon. Alright, so we're going to stir that up really good so that bouillon melts. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in my 3 cans of tomato, diced tomato. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move these out of the way. And now I'm going to go ahead and open up my bags of vegetables. And pour those in. I want to make sure, there it is. I'm going to make sure I get my seasoning packet out. Now I did buy 4 bags of these just in case I wanted to add more, but I think 2 is going to be plenty. I'll have enough to make another pot later on in the summer. Let's make sure we don't dump the seasoning packet in there. Okay, you guys see that? Looks delicious already. Yeah, 2 bags is perfect. So 4 cups of beef bouillon, or 4 cups of beef broth, 4 cups of water, 3 cans of diced tomatoes, and 2 bags, and I believe the bags are 18.5 ounces. Now I'm going to, oops, I'll pee. We go ahead and open up the Chesapeake Bay seasoning. We're going to go ahead and put that in there. Can you see this deliciousness? Let me bring you closer, friends. Look at this. Oh, this stuff is so good. And like I said, if you cannot find this, It's made by Hanover. That's okay, don't worry, because we will use Old Bay, and I'll give you that recipe with the Old Bay in it. If you don't have the seasoning, this is why I don't need to use the Old Bay in mine. Sometimes I do add it because I like it spicy, but I'll do a taste test at the end to see. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and give this a good stir. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and get this turned on. And I'm going to go ahead and let this cook for about a half an hour. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in the claws and the crab halves. And then let it cook for about another half an hour. And then I'm going to go in, oh, there's another potato, and add the meat, because I don't want to add the meat until towards the last hour or so. Okay, so I have this on medium low. I'm going to head and put the lid on it and let this cook for about a half an hour and then come back and check on it. But in the meantime, I'll be checking on it just to make sure it doesn't boil over. Alright, my friends, it has been a half an hour and oh, it smells so good. Let's go ahead and stir that a little bit. Put this down real quick. I'm going to go ahead and put in my crab claws and my crab shells, little half crabs. Splatter everything. There we go. Like I said, I'll put the crab meat in and oh, I got a cut on my thumb and oh, that burned when that seasoning gets in there. Okay, so now I have my crab pieces in there. Now I'm going to turn this down. I'm going to let it simmer for about another half an hour, and then I'm going to add my crab meat in there and then let it go for a little bit longer. So let's put the lid back on and we'll check back in a half an hour. Alright, my friends, we are a little over an hour now. Just put this right there. You guys see this goodness? Look at that. It looks so good. Looks like we got plenty of liquid. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in, this is close to 3 pounds of crab meat. I may have to add a little bit more liquid once I get this crab meat in there. We'll have to see. Go ahead and add that in. Be careful I don't make a mess. Alright. You see that? Ugh, it looks so good. Now this is a huge pot, friends. Normally you would use about 1 pound of crab meat and cut this down in half. I got quite a bit in there because I did have a lot of crabs left over to pick, so that's why I have so much crab meat. Oh my goodness, this looks so good. You guys see that? Oh, it smells delicious. Alright, we're going to put the lid back on and I'm going to let it go on low. Probably for about 45 minutes and then I'm going to check on it again. Alright, my friends, this has been cooking for quite a while now. Simmering, so I'm going to do a quick taste test to see if I want to add any more seasoning in there. Can you see that? Oh my goodness. Tons of crab meat. Alright, my friends, I'm going to taste this now and see if I need to add anything to it. Look at that. Oh, hot. Hot. Oh, this is perfect. Absolutely perfect. I do not need to add any more seasoning in it, but what I will do is add how much seasoning to put in this if you can't find the packets and you don't pick your own crab. So I'll make sure I add how much Old Bay I normally would put in this. And it is a personal preference. I like it seasoned really well. And you can always keep adding more, but I will make sure when I type up the recipe that I add that in there for you. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see where I say plate this up, I guess bowl this up, and we're gonna, can you hear Miss Opie? She just came in from outside. So I'm going to go ahead and get this ready for dinner. And actually what I think I'm gonna do is take up a bowl, and I think I'm going to try to add, they said if you add some half and half, it's, you can make like a creamier crab soup. So I think I might add a little bit of half and half and try it in a small bowl. So let me do that and let's see how that tastes. All right, my friends, so here's a little bit of crab soup. I didn't want to do a whole lot just in case. I'm just going to add some half and half to it. And so I'm going to add in just a teaspoon of flour. See if I can thicken it up a little bit more of a half and half. I ran out of it in the other container there. Let's see. Not the flour. Probably should put the flour in when it was really hot. It looks good. Alright friends, let's try this and see what the deal is. I've never had cream of crab or half and half crab soup, so I'm not really sure if this is how it's supposed to taste, but it adds a tad bit of sweetness and cuts down on the spiciness. But I think I like it. I'm gonna get hubby to try it and see what he thinks. And I'll come back and let you know. All right, my friends, so hubby did not like the half and half in the crab soup. He's not a big fan of regular crab soup, but he does like cream of crab soup, but he said he didn't care for that. Honestly, I definitely prefer my regular crab soup. I just read that you could add half and half and a little bit of flour to it. That's not my preference. It did not taste bad though. Honestly, it did not taste that bad, but I just prefer my Maryland crab soup. So anyway, I will link the recipe below, and I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me. And if you have any questions about the crab soup, please feel free to leave it in the comment section below. So friends, until next time, bye!